Hello to everyone watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. It's another episode of NRG Insights. But then we just move leaders up. Um, we don't tend to have like formal leadership training. How have you developed your leadership skills and what, and not just not in your business, but as an industry? What do you think we need to do to kind of to make it more accessible to people? Because people don't even know what they're good at it or not yet, right? Because we've never done it. So it's a tough. I think it's the only thing you go into where people go, "Go on, good luck." With no formality to it.
Yeah, I think it's still of that mindset that if you did the job, you can manage that team, and
Mm.
actually, it's a completely different job. It's got completely different skill
Yeah, yeah.
set,
Even like your
different.
emotional intelligence stuff, like you said before, it's just completely different. It's not. It's so far from what you used to do. It
Yeah.
it's a toughie. So sorry, I keep interrupting that. But yeah, what's
I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is, but what do you think?
Yeah, I was probably no different to be fair. I probably went in similar and thought, well, I've done the job. I've done the job before I got the role, sort of thing.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
should be okay. And then all of a sudden, I think you go in. I think training. I think not just jumping into it. I think, as I say, I was given that gradual sort of, be a mentor, get used to it. I think that helped.
yeah,
Actually, it's probably 12, 18 months after I'd started being a manager that actually we did some more formal sort of company management training, which was vital. I think actually having some structure to it, there's some brilliant companies out there, and whether that be external mentors that you have working with people on a one-on-one basis or
yeah,
actually some actual formal training, just the basics really. I think that was really useful, and I look back now and wish I'd had that before I went into it.
yeah. Do you
Because I
think that
think,
should be a thing? Like I said, we really don't. I personally think we don't spend enough on it, or we don't give enough knowledge on it to go. Oh, that's a bit of me. You look at a management course and go, oh, I get that. Like I could do that. I would enjoy it, and I actually love helping people because we've moved up the ladder. But management training is we don't know what we don't know. Like I ran a business for years, then I got a business coach and realised I wasn't really running the business. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You
yeah.
just it's we just but we chuck people in at the deep end. So there's no
And if you leave it too long, actually, it's a bit you mentioned about golf earlier. To be fair, it's a bit like golf, right? If you've never had lessons and you kind of self-taught, and then you have lessons, you spend half your time unlearning your bad
undoing those
habits,
habits. Yeah,
and actually, it's no different to management, really. Actually, you can pick up bad habits. I think the other thing I would say, I was very fortunate that I had Michael there in particular, the founders when I officially went, and then very quickly had Dimitri join, who was vital for me. I think to have someone above you who you can learn a lot from,
yeah,
look up to, who's very good at, giving you actually sort of feedback, I think is a really key thing. Actually asking for feedback from both people who report into you and people you report into. I think that's not an easy thing to do, but actually really important to help build.
have they always been really open with that? Like, what's the word? Positive criticism. Have they always been like? So I know obviously Dimitri was there, and I've always highlighted him as one of the top people managers. He's a very good,
Yeah.
um, how he looks after people. But has it always been quite good with like constructive criticism on your part? Have they always tried to help you in that way, or is it? Because sometimes that's hard to take, like you say, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was probably the toughest thing of going to a manager. Actually, like I'm quite a positive person. I'm very much, I would say, I want to drive people forward with motivation. That's
Hmm.
always been my mantra. Really, I think if you constantly use the stick, so to speak, you always will have to use that. I'm more of a carrot, and then when you do have to use the stick, it probably lands a little bit better. But yeah, I think that I've always taken that on board. I think partly, I said before, I've always been keen to learn, and I think if you assume you have all the answers and are almost arrogant to a degree that I know everything, I don't need to learn, then you
Yeah.
never will, to be honest. So
Even when I had aspirations of leadership, I remember thinking, I can't be Wolf of Wall Street. I can't be that person who's helicoptering over someone and totally on at
That's
them
changed
day in,
massively as
day
well,
out.
isn't it?
Uh-huh. And I remember thinking, right, okay, I can just only ever be me. I can only ever be my authentic self. So I try to be a transformative leader, like transformation in the sense that I'm empowering my team. We have a shared vision. Morale's, try and keep morale really high. It's continuous improvement. It's feedback. We've all got numbers to deliver,
Yeah, yeah.
and we'll deliver those if the environment is really positive and people feel they can speak up. And yeah, not every team member will be functioning the same, behaving the same, their performance will all be different within it. And it's my job to understand that and understand what motivates them, what makes them get out of bed every day, we talk about that, and everyone gets a one-to-one. Everybody gets a one-to-one every month. Everybody gets that time, and they'll get even more than that time if they need to. When I've got new people coming in, they get clearly, I'll afford them a lot more time, and we chat, and it's just informally, how are you doing? How has your week been? Every week we go on a Friday call. We have a Friday briefing, and we communicate. How has your week gone? And even if it's been rubbish, tell us it's been rubbish. I want to hear the good stuff. Doesn't drive us forward at times. It's lovely, and we need tell us all. But tell me the challenges. Tell me the frustrations. Who's drove you nuts? What's going on in the market? What are our brokers saying? So that's how I'm trying to lead. And I've delivered the numbers. I've delivered numbers when I was at Adam Bank.
Yeah.
I delivered the numbers when I'm here at Lendinvest. I also have to remind myself. Somebody gave me this feedback, and honestly, when something sort of stabs you in the heart, and I was like, oh my God, he's so right, and you'll know who he is when he listens to this. What I had to remember, and it was that transition of BDM to head of sales. I find it awkward saying this, but I don't mind saying it. I was a good BDM, right?
Yeah.
And I love brokers. I absolutely, and I still go and see brokers to this day. I don't hide. I don't sit behind my desk. I go out and see them because I want to support my team, and I want to just be with brokers and then I can bring it all back to camp, and then we can make the changes what's needed to address what's going out there, understand the customer's needs from the broker itself, because focus on your customer. Get that right, and you'll deliver your numbers as well.
Nice.
So I remember, I was, won awards and all of that. So all lovely stuff. And I was very driven. And I was very I want to do the most appointments. I want to be number one on the league table. I kind of wasn't vocal of that. I didn't vocalise it. It was in there.
Yeah.
But I was also a big team player. So if somebody was struggling, I was there supporting them. If someone I want to have a whinge or a moan, I would listen, but I would also start guiding them into, let's try and reframe that. Get it off your chest, how we're going to move on. So even as a BDM, I think I was starting to bring in them traits of I want to sort of manage these people. You've got to remember,
so
Marcus,
before you got the job, right? You're naturally doing it.
Because I was a leader in other organisations, so becoming a BDM for me actually was quite tricky because I missed managing and leading people.
Right.
So I remember sitting in a car park once, and I'll go back to what that guy said to us. I was sitting in a car park once, and I was like, this is really lonely.
Yeah.
This is a really lonely job, even though, because I was just I didn't have a team around us any longer. But what this guy had said to me is, there was one day I was having a bit of moan about, it was somebody's productivity. And he looked at us and he was like, Paula, just remember, not everybody can be like you when you were a BDM. And I was like, he's so right. So that's one of the things I had to work through is do not ever say that when I was a BDM and when I was a BDM. And so what I started to do was channeling all these things when I was BDM, as in what worked well and what didn't work well. And so what I do is when I'm in stakeholder meetings, when I'm thinking about how we can do everything better, I always think, I put my BDM hat on. What would that mean to me BDMs? How will that help them to do their job better? Because that's my job, right? I want to be the best version of themselves. I want to remove all the noise, all the friction, all the frustrations so they can perform.
So let's go into that leadership side of thing then. So you've headed up national sales teams, that kind of thing. What's interesting in this is the transition from being a pure salesperson into sales manager. What do you think the reasons are? Some people are good at it, or some people thrive in it, and it's not for every salesperson. Talk to me about that kind of transition.
I think that there are a few different angles on this. I think firstly, people wanting to go into sort of leadership, I think not really understanding what leadership really is. It's not just necessarily an extension of the job that you're doing. You have a lot of responsibilities, and you have responsibilities to your people, whereas a lot of the time when you're BDM, for example, your responsibility is very much for yourself and your own targets and how you grow yourself. But when you are responsible for a team of people, it's not about you. I look at myself. I'm the least important person in that cog. It's not about me. It's about my team and what can I do that actually gets them better and helps them develop. And I think sometimes people will naturally try to progress because they think that that's the next
Yeah.
step.
Do you know
That's
what?
what
I've
they
had
have
this
to do.
conversation time and again on this. It's just about, just because you're the best salesperson, sales is inherently selfish, right? Because we're just talking about our KPIs. What can I do to hit my targets? And management is very much we rather than I. So it's not always the best salespeople, right? It's not always the top salesperson makes the best manager. There are traits that a lot of salespeople don't have, and one of those being we rather than me. It's I think that's how
Yeah.
people kind of rise up through it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that, then don't get me wrong, I think some of the best managers are the ones that may have had that technical experience. 'Cause I think that to be able to show a level of empathy and understanding of this is why it's difficult and this is what's happening. But you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. And you look at, even some of the biggest businesses like in the world, when they're bringing in a new CEO, that CEO might not necessarily have come from that exact same industry. They might have come
yeah,
somewhere else, but you're hired for a different insight that you have because you understand how it operates. And I think leadership's very similar.
yeah.
My team know more than me, and I would always hold my hand up. But it's sometimes in leadership, you're not necessarily paid for the job that you do. You're paid for the intervention that you may need to make, and there are two sort of key differences on that
Yeah.
as well.
How is it with different personalities and kind of different egos? It's a sales team at the end of the day. How do you manage that with the different people in your team? What are the important things to think about when you're going into that leadership role?
So everybody has their own driver. What gets them out of bed in the morning, gives them job satisfaction, puts a smile on their face, and that sort of spring in their step. It's different for everybody, and the key with sort of leadership, I think, is making sure people feel that they're an individual, they feel sort of included, but they're also, I suppose, celebrated for the fact that they have differences. I think, but then you also then need to know how to kind of knit them together, the different personalities, in order to form the team. And taking time out with somebody, or with an individual that you just don't talk business about, but you talk about them, their
Yeah.
family, what are they doing, what they enjoy, all of those little bits makes you feel valued. And there's something called the psychological contract,
Hmm.
that's, and that, honing in on the psychological contract, people like wanting to, needing to feel that they belong, and that they're important, all of those little bits, they're all the things I think that probably help teams be successful, but also leaders be successful within, for their teams.
I think, and I've seen this in every business I've worked for, that the company will go, right, they're a great salesperson, let's put them into manager positions. And whilst I'm not denying that sometimes that works, it's not because they're a good salesperson that it
No, no.
works. It's because they already have the skills. So, for me, my background is predominantly ops. And I will always say this, it's my personality that's sales.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love to chat, I love to build relationships, I love to understand the detail. But actually, the skills of a good manager aren't necessarily the skills of a good salesperson.
100%.
But I think with that comes, so my approach to it is, but I'm going to learn the detail. So whilst I've not been on the road and done that, or been over the phone and done what you do, I'm going to learn it as if I needed to, because
Yeah,
that's how I build that respect with my team. That's the culture I would want, that they would all want to learn as well. Because
yeah,
equally, if I'm going to coach and support you, I need to understand what you do, how you do it, etc. I've just done the FIBA qualification for the certified practitioner in
yeah,
specialist finance, because it's important that whilst I don't need to know it day to day, but I do if my people need me, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
do if I'm going to make them better. So actually, what makes me a great leader is all the management qualities, not the sales part. But I
yeah,
can coach around how to approach something, and how to articulate something, and how to, get over a challenge. And I
yeah.
think
You
that's
know
what's
what? It's really poignant for me. I don't think I actually say on here because it's not happening yet. But it's just in regards to out of industry people coming in, and whether you can be, whether you can direct a sales team not having done it. But you're right, it's about that hunger for knowledge as well, right? If you can,
Yeah.
if you're willing to learn what they do as opposed to having done it. I also think you're absolutely right. Like the best salespeople are selfish, and management is not a selfish trait. Like it's the opposite. And there's nothing wrong with being selfish, by the way. And the good salespeople are, because they're driven. That's how they're driven. But I mean, what it's about you, isn't it? It's not about we. So I absolutely agree that it's not always the best salespeople. A lot of the best salespeople I know are not interested in management at all.
No.
They're like
And I
taking a
think
big wage, and they're like
Yeah.
eating what they want, and that's it.
Absolutely, and you need somebody guiding them, coaching them, supporting them that will continue to lift them up, because for every person, right, it's not the same goal. So some people want to become managers, some people want to just be the best at sales, they want to, they might want to go into learning development, they might want to go into all of those things, but that's where it comes down to understanding your people and having a passion in people, because if you don't, you will be a really bad manager. Really bad manager.
Yeah, it's so true. And do you know what? Recruitment's worse than financial services for it. Top billers become managers.
Yeah.
Which is the worst thing ever, because actually that person is a top biller because they're great at billing. They're not great at managing people.
And they're great at doing it their way, right? So as a manager, it's about that holistic view of, right, so they do it that way, they do it that way, and they do it that way. But let's talk about what's right for you. What way is your way?
Yeah. So talk to me about how many people you got on your team?
So I currently have 21 under me. So 2 managers, a sales hub, and also 3 telephony BDMs.
So how, like, like the age-old adage of like anything above 8 is too taxing on your time. I know you've got a couple of managers in there as well, so it's kind of you're at 12 now. How do you get to know all that? Because you're absolutely right. I think the best managers I see all the time, and obviously I'm very lucky that I'm surrounded by sales directors and heads of sales. I get to speak to people all the time. It's a constant business lesson, but they're incredible at reading people. Like it sounds like that's what part of your skill set.
Yeah.
You've got 20 people. Like there's only so much reading you can do as well. How do you combat that?
As in just getting to know them.
Or just generally like how people work, because you've got 20 different personalities. That's a lot of different ways. Like, well, that guy doesn't work like that. Like, I'd have to have post-it notes on my computer to remember where we. So I was a team of 6.
You know what? My husband tells me off all the time, right? Because I come home and I make no decisions at all. I'm that wife that sits there and goes, I don't know what we're having today. I don't know what we're watching. I don't know. I can sort out our son, and I'm phenomenal at work, and that's about it. All the So, and I think it's because of this. So I think for me, I take it quite seriously to get to know them. Yes, I'm busy, but ultimately we don't succeed and achieve without each of those individuals. And I think it really starts, and probably when we come on to culture, this feeds into that. I think it starts with the recruitment, and you'll know this more than anybody, right? I take quite an active role in our recruitment, not because I don't trust my managers. I have 2 incredible managers that will go even deeper into the people than I will. But I like to be involved because I like to understand who's joining, my team. Because actually, at that point, I think there's only been 2 people that have joined the team that I've not done the interview on. So I already understand a little bit about them. I will always make time when they join. I block out time in my calendar just to go and speak to the team. Because actually, there's a lot of them, like you say. And I think just over time, investing in them and wanting to know about what they do at the weekend, who their other halves are. They all laugh at me because when they join, I go, right, okay, so show me pictures of people, because I'm quite visual. So I'm like, show me your other half, show me your cat, show me your dog, show me your child. Like, let me see so that I can see you more, because that's really, really important.
We are all just in recruitment, trying to persuade the best people to come and work with you, and then trying to keep them happy, which is true, especially as business owners or managers. That's the toughest gig, is getting people to come and buy into what you're doing, and then getting them to stay.
Absolutely, and when I did a project into why people leave, there was 2 things that came out of it. The top one was that they've either been oversold something and at their interview and it hasn't delivered, or they haven't had the training to support their role. And it's just so important that, and those things are just so fundamental, aren't they? And it sounds obvious that don't oversell a role, say it how it is. And maybe people are so keen and eager to get those people on board that perhaps they get a bit over enthusiastic about it. But then secondly, if you've put somebody into a role, even if you've done the job before, you've got to learn the new company culture. You've got to learn the way things do that. And, processes are different, systems are different, and you need to provide people with the tools to be able to do their job.
Do you know what? The overselling thing is the number one bugbear for me, because that's the number one reason people come to us. I suppose if people didn't oversell, well, I wouldn't make any money. But at the same time, it is the worst thing you can do. I also appreciate if you're looking at job adverts, for instance, they're all very similar, or you're looking at BDM roles, for instance, they're all much of a muchness. So if you can promise that little bit more, but you 100% won't keep that person. I don't think people understand the cost of hiring people on overselling. It must cost the industry more than anything, any other problem, because the cost of rehiring, cost of training.
Yeah, and you've also got to think about succession planning and all those other things as well. And it's just, to turn it into business, it's about repeat customers, isn't it? How many people just deal with one customer and then move on to the next and don't really think about servicing them at the back end. Whereas when you think the cost of acquiring a new client as opposed to, keeping an existing one, it's the same model, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what? I wrote about this morning. I was going to say you've been looking at my LinkedIn, but you haven't, because I didn't post it. But I actually, I said about looking at new business. The first thing I do when I look at new business is speak to old business. It's not, you know what I mean? The cost of new business is massive, when actually we've all got a database of people that have bought from us, or people that like us, or have picked up the phone to us. It's massive, isn't that? I think we kind of neglect that. Do you think, I know we've all talked about the BDM side of things, but do you think that is a major trait as well? They understand the relationship building over the fun of new business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the old 80-20 rule, isn't it? That you'll get 80% of your business from 20% of the people. So when you're you've got to build those relationships and keep them going and stuff. And I was just going to say that during the credit crunch, when a lot of mortgage lenders disappeared, when products disappeared, and it was a really tough time for everybody. Those brokers and people who were successful and kept going were the ones that had an existing client bank that they worked and that had realised that. And I think it became so much more important that people sort of realised it was all about sort of servicing and looking after existing clients and not necessarily just chasing the new ones. And I think that's a lesson, that's a positive lesson that came out of that period as well. And I think people are much more aware of that now.
You think we learned? I always think did we learn anything? Because then the market got better, and then last year was tough, and then we started saying, don't forget, the most important thing is the relationship building, and everyone had to go back to doing it. And then the market's a bit better now, and do we just naturally slide into that because it gets easier? I think it's really important to remember the hard times, because that really sharpens our tools. But in all honesty, I already see people slipping back into we only had 3 months of good business recently, and it's already it's hard to maintain that standard. I think that's the top echelon of people.
Oh yeah. This business is very cyclical, isn't it? And we all learn lessons, and we say we won't go there. But if you just take COVID, really, we learned a lot of lessons there, and now that feels like it's the distant future. So far in the distance.
Every time we do
I speak to people. Yeah, I speak to people that during you sort of say about the credit crunch, and they go I was 4, and it's okay, and they don't remember it. And it's the same. Soon we'll be like that. Won't we? With COVID, where people go, I don't remember that. My mum told me about it, or something. So I think it's just human nature, isn't it? And sometimes. Yeah, it's great if we can learn, and maybe that's where experience, you have the benefit of hindsight and stuff. But I think we also just roll with the punches and get on with it and try and keep optimistic and keep going and look for the next new thing and stuff. Yeah.